A lot of people look at the TV and from the comfort of their own home and their AC and sitting there in their lazy boy and like, oh, you're a bunch of storm chasers. We're not storm chasers. We're storm responders. We're going into the storm because of what's about to happen. Underprivileged, low income. They don't have the money to evacuate, fuel to evacuate, and go stay at a hotel.
Debris sign or something?
Yeah, I saw a debris signature, and I go look at the satellite. Go, that's a home. That's a farm home that's way on the backside of this hill. How do I get to it to make sure they're okay now? Until you live it yourself, you don't really truly understand what that person on the other side of that camera is going through. You can't train for that. Not one bit. My name is Chris Fontaine. I started this nonprofit after Hurricane Harvey. We saw a need, a niche, so to say. Because some of the best things are formed out of necessity, not just because. And so we saw a need for when local organizations or local agencies are overwhelmed to have additional trained personnel that can step in and help in those situations. Mm-hmm. So that's where we started. Baptism by fire, not really meant to be there, but we were there, and we pulled a lot of people out of homes, a lot of flooded water, or a lot of floods throughout the history of the organization. But we've been through some storms, let's put it that way.
When you moved from Florida to Galveston, how everything started, and how did you open your organization?
So, 2008, graduated high school. Parents got divorced. Followed my mom to Galveston, which was 4 weeks before Hurricane Ike made landfall in Galveston. We were there on the island. We were at an apartment complex, so we were on the second and third floor. So when the storm was coming in, we have all of our experiences from going through storms there in North Florida. A lot of them close calls, a lot of the whole maybe we should evacuate, so maybe we shouldn't evacuate. So we were well versed as a family of watching and kind of knowing what to do, especially growing up with it on the East Coast. And that was a major threat was hurricanes and tropical storms and all that. What was different though is when Harvey was coming into Galveston, it was a lot slower. Mm-hmm. We're used to glancing by full speed coming up the coast, and it's there one day and gone the next. Harvey it came in and then it backed out. So it came in down by Rockport and then backed out and came up towards Galveston. So we got a lot of rain and a lot of storm surge, and we got a lot more flooding than what was anticipated. Galveston's a very resilient island. Ever since the 1900 hurricane, a lot of things were put in place. A lot of things were implemented, like the seawall, raising the island. So to say, if you look back at the history of the island, they actually raised the level of the island and have put a natural grade on it so that everything would drain back towards the bay. But with Ike, the storm surge came from the backside of the island and came up from the bay side instead of coming from the seawall side on the Gulf side. So we got a lot of storm surge flooding. So my family decided to evacuate. So we left the island and came back 3 days later to a trash department, drywall hanging from the ceiling. We lost one of the cars. We weren't able to move it. But that was the beginning of Texas hurricanes for me. And then so that was a welcome to Texas, so to say. A lot of my friends from high school, that was summer after I graduated high school, they were like, "Oh, you're the black cloud. Thanks for taking the storm with you," And so that was Ike. It was different. It was a different storm than we were used to. After the storm, and this is where kind of my mindset starts going into being a first responder and kind of thing. We saw the Florida Forest Service. They were all there at the Star Wars Airport. They had their 18-wheelers. They had all their side-by-sides. So to see all the regional response teams coming in, where we didn't see that where I grew up. So now my eyes are open to how big this disaster response world really is. and how far people come to help each other. And that's what really it's all about is being there for your neighbor, or being there for going to Louisiana, being still our neighbor, you know, or being there for your fellow countrymen. Because like I said, we'll go all across the Gulf Coast. That's our limiting factor right now is money for fuel. So we can only go so far, but where we do go is we try to do the best we can, you know. And then you had coming into to Harvey. I was a prior firefighter at the time. An injury took me out of the fire service, so it's kind of in between. I was working in oil and gas as a technical rescue specialist, and so I was still in the industry, but I wasn't taking care of the community. I was a volunteer firefighter for Cypress Creek before Harvey. When I got hurt, I'd already left that department, moved because of work, and went into working in the refineries doing high angle rope rescue, confined space rescue. So I still stuck with it, but I just wasn't being a community firefighter anymore. But when Harvey hit, I was living with my ex-family, my ex-wife's family at the time, and where they lived in Bel Air, they had a lot of flooding from Allison, Tropical Storm Allison. So, learning and already been through a hurricane, it's here on the Texas coast. It's all right. I'm asking questions. All right. Well, what can we expect here? And so Allison was a flooding event. Well, how far does the water come? How close are we to the bayou? You know, what can we expect? So he kind of explained to me how water flows through the area and how water tops the bayous and all that, and how the flooding worked, so to say, in that area, and how it was supposed to come and go. Well, then they said it was going to be worse than Allison. We started getting a plan together. My brother stayed with me at my ex-wife's house, wife at the time. And so I had a inflatable boat and an outboard motor that we were going to be using. Had no intention on using it for rescue at all. We were into sailing. We had a catamaran that we were planning on racing in the GT300 up down the Gulf Coast. And so we were going to use that for training, using it to help right the boat up when we push it too far, or help bring us back if something breaks. Have a family member bring us out water or food while we're practicing and all that. So that was the original reason for that boat. It was just a little red inflatable, and it had a 20 horsepower motor on it. And I was like, if it's going to be this bad, we need to go get it out of storage. We need to put it on the truck.
Keep it safe.
Yeah, I only drove a Dodge Dakota at the time, so it was just sitting on the back of the truck, out in the weather and the elements. The motor is in the back of the truck, and so we had everything prepared. And before we even got back to the house in Bel Air, we performed our first water rescue. So we weren't even back to the house at all from the storage unit. Right there at 610 Estella Link, we came through, and there was a vehicle floating in the intersection, and person still inside of it. And at that moment, we realized, while I'm on the phone trying to call 911, we realized that no one's coming. We're already to the point where 911's saturated. The trucks can't go anywhere. They're flooded in. So it's like, okay, go back to our training. Both my brother and I are prior firefighters at this point. He's also prior military. So we go back to our training and told him, hey, go get her. Let's get her out of the car. I'm going to keep on trying. And it kept on getting put on hold. And so he was like, all right, put the phone away. It's not worth it. It's not worth trying to call anymore. At that moment, even early on in the storm, we realized we were on our own. Training doesn't really put you in that mindset to realize you're on your own. As a firefighter, you always have RIT team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you always have that next due engine coming
Yep.
in. You know,
Teamwork.
teamwork. You have more
Mm-hmm.
people coming. With my brother in the military, you had a quick response force that could come in. You know, it's all the systems that you normally would have in place. They're gone. They're not there anymore. Um, so we got that lady out. We got that lady safety. Car still floating in the intersection. The truck I was driving at the time had a little bit of lift on it, so I was able to drive through, and we were able to get back to the house and to explain to the family there, you know, hey, this is for real. This is gonna get bad. Um, and so we just stayed up all night, watched the news. You know, power's still on at this point, and you see the water coming up, and they had the street was redone. So Army Corps of Engineers, they came through and put a flag in their front yard to go, we've designed the street to hold water up to this point. We watched the little where the flag was, and sure enough, water came up to that point and went down. We're like, okay, it's doing its job. We should be fine. Water came back up to that point, stayed there for another 3 hours, and it started coming up. And we realized that when it started coming up, we realized that the bayou had already crested its bank, already come overflowed onto the streets. And looking at all the weather, it's like it's gonna keep on coming. So there's nothing we can do about it. And we were sitting in the family room watching TV, and the outlet in the floor started smoking and sparking. And we realized that the water was coming through the weep holes, through the brick walls, and going underneath the wood floors.
Wow.
So at that point, you know, it's like, okay, we got to shut the power off. You know, we're going to risk electrocuting ourselves if we have more water coming in and we're stepping into water with electricity in the house. So I went to the back door, walked out the back door to go turn the power off, and I stepped out into calf deep water in our backyard.
Huh.
So we walked in the backyard and went ahead and just turned the power off, and we were like, all right, we're in for a ride. And then once the water started coming up, it kept on coming. We started moving things, and then at one point we'd already moved enough. We were just sitting in chairs, nothing we can really do. And I had fallen asleep, and something had fallen over, and it woke me up, and we were up to about knee deep water in the house at that point. I was like, okay, this is getting serious. So my brother and I, we went out to the truck, pulled the boat off the truck, put the motor on it, got it going. At this time, there's about 4 feet of water in the middle of the street. One of the cars has already had water inside of it. The car that was on the street's already toast. At that point, we realized, you know, if we're the highest property, you know, highest house in this neighborhood, if we already have, you know, mid-calf to almost knee-deep water in the house, there's other people that are in worse off right now. So my brother and I, we got in the boat and we get going. So that started the 4 days of being on the water for Harvey, and ended up evacuating my family out. We ended up getting 30 inches of water in the house, so we evacuated them to next neighborhood over. A gentleman that does disaster response himself, the Baptist Men's Ministry. They have the 18-wheelers, kind of like Samaritan's Purse. So he built that home. He had it ready, high enough over the 500-year floodplain, generators up on stands. Perfect. There was still grass around his house.
Prepared for wars.
Yeah, exactly. He had built that for the worst case scenario, and it worked. So I got my family there, and my brother and I was like, all right, the family's safe. Let's go keep on going back out. And that started the 4 days of pulling people out of homes during Harvey. And there was one case that sticks out to me from Harvey, and that was we got to a home, and younger lady had infants, toddler, you know, an infant and a toddler, and they're on oxygen. No power in the house now, so they're on, you know, pony bottles, what we call pony bottles in EMS, the standalone tanks, small ones. And they're like, we need to get out of here. I was like, yeah, we're gonna get you out of here. Well, during times of evacuating people out towards 610, we knew that there was a fire engine down there that had made it to the parking lot, where they were evacuating people out with high water vehicles. And so we took them, got them in the boat, beached it in the entrance to the parking lot, and didn't see anyone out of the trucks at all. So we take the toddler in my arms, trying to cover the raincoat, walk over to the fire truck and just open the door, and they're in there sleeping because they've been running nonstop, And I just take the toddler and I'm like, here you go. It's like, that y'all take over from here. I got to get back out in the water and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the strangest thing to be out there doing that, and next thing you know, you're hearing alerts of going tornado warning. It's
Double trouble.
It's double trouble. And you're like, well, where is it safe to be? So we pull out our phone, still had some power on it, and realize, okay, we're on the edge of it. The way the storm's circulating, we're fine. We just happen to be in that corner in the warning zone. But at the same time, the lightning's picking up. We're in the water, and it's like there's still people out there. So we went down to a nursing home, and we saw someone was pushing an inflatable bed down the street trying to get there. So we picked them up and drug them down there to the nursing home to get their half paralyzed grandmother out of the apartment, or her nursing home. And so got them out. Got the little transport wheelchair, electric wheelchair was toast, but somehow the family had gotten down to that staging area, and so we got her out. But there is many cases or rescues that are exactly the same as that during Harvey. So that's pretty much where we started with a baptism by fire, so to say. Not really knowing where to go from there, just to keep on going out, keep on going. So we I think we stopped only one time to rest during those 4 days.
Wow.
When pulling up to people's houses, seeing if they need anything, if they were staying there, they know that we're out doing rescues. They're like, well, what do you need? It's like water, Tylenol, and fuel. We're getting sore, we're getting tired, granola bars, whatever, so we're snacking on granola bars. We're trying to go through neighborhoods, and anytime someone offered fuel, we take it
And keep going.
and just keep on going. That motor only had 10 hours on it before Harvey, and it ran for 4 days straight.
Wow. It was in their favor.
Yeah, it was a heck of a break-in period. And to this day, we're still using that motor.
Mhm.
So we're still using that motor that we used during Harvey.
Can you notice any differences between hurricanes in Florida and in Texas?
So the differences between storms in Florida and Texas is I think of it as Florida gets a lot more of the glancing blows, just because of geography and how the storm tracks go. East coast of Florida, they get a glancing blow, or west coast of Florida, they're getting a hit, but they don't stay very long. They start to pick up moving speed. You saw that during Helene. Helene got across Florida, and then it stalled out. Once it got past Florida, it stalled out in the Appalachian Mountains. Where Texas, if it's going to come, it's either it's going to come into a glancing blow and then finally land in Louisiana, or it's going to come in and then start slowing down, or it's just going to rocket off depending on how the jet stream's going. So leading into that's why we lean so heavily on learning and looking at models and meteorology,
Mm-hmm.
because if we know how long it's going to be here, we kind of know what kind of threats we're looking at. A South Coast Texas hit, Rio Grande Valley is going to get flooded. That's just the topography, flash flooding. It's a lot more sand out there, so they get a lot of true flash flooding. Houston area, we get street flooding because we're a concrete city. The water's got nowhere to go unless it's following a certain path. And when those certain paths are blocked or ill-maintained, it backs up. You have a direct hit like Harvey. You have all the water is getting pushed back from the ship channel from the storm surge, so all the rainwater coming down has nowhere to go. So it just backs up all the tributaries and the bayous, and it pushes back up into the city. So Florida, though, the land is sand, so it can absorb and then dissipate the water faster. We have a lot more clay on our ground here.
Okay.
So when the water gets on the ground, and if we've already had the outer bands of rain coming through, just sporadic rainstorms, the ground's already soaked. So if the ground's already soaked and we got a clay base underneath, the rain's got nowhere to go. So it's running across the top, and that's where it goes to the low sections, the neighborhoods and streets and everything, or the bayous. But once all those get full, it doesn't have anywhere to go. So that's why flooding here is such a bigger concern than in Florida.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Where Florida's flat, relatively flat. So storm surge comes in and goes farther, but it's also gone quicker. Everyone thinks Texas is flat, but it's not. It's the ground may look flat, but the natural terrain and the bayous and the riverbanks and all that, everything leads to them. So you'll see the water runoff. You'll see the water running down the streets. Man-made rivers are streets, the way they design it for drainage. But then when the water stops flowing, it's because it's got nowhere to go, and now it's coming back. So,
since you have a background as a firefighter, what led you to create your own organization and foundation later? You mentioned that it's not only you, it's your brother and other people.
During Harvey, it was me, my brother, and a gentleman named Dave Shaw. We all worked together during Harvey, and we realized that the storms are continuing to get worse. Climate change, population density, construction, more concrete. We realized that there was this need for a non-governmental agency, so a nonprofit, of volunteers, people that have normal everyday jobs, but still have the desire to help when times deem it needed. And so we thought, we're prior first responders. We have the training. We can't do it as a career anymore, but we still have this desire to serve, desire to help. So that's why we started a nonprofit, was because we knew there was a need, and we figured if we give people an organization to volunteer with, we can fill that need. We can get proper training. We're already getting training through fire service, prior experience. So we knew where to get the training. We knew how to get the training, and so we continued that. A lot of our members will now go through flood and swiftwater training through a company out in New Braunfels. We do train on actual water, swift water. A lot of our guys are experienced with medical. So I was an EMTI, the one level below paramedic. We have some of our members that are currently active EMS, so they work for different agencies in the area. One's right up the road in Friendswood. We know that very well. So we have all these different people that are in the organization that bring their own skill sets. And that's what's awesome about having a volunteer organization, is because we can have people all different walks of life come and join us. And whether it be you're a truck driver, okay, so relief. You don't know it, but you know relief. You know logistics. You know all the hard parts of getting things where they need to go. If you're a truck driver, you know roads and routes. Fastest way to get somewhere is an interstate, most likely. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes those are blocked off. So how do you read a map to realize how to get where we need to go? As a truck driver, they have that aspect of, all right, I've got to get there no matter what, because my load's got to get to that destination. I'm going to figure out a way to get there. Our EMS members, they have the medical mindset, and they're used to working under pressure. That fast cadence of calls during high call volume periods, that turn and burn sense of mind is very valuable. Our prior military guys, They are they understand leadership. They understand command structure. So everyone that brings a certain training level or experience, they have a place because we can put them in a like-minded role of what they're currently doing or where they came from. My vice president right now is a director of IT. He's an office guy, but you know what he's good at? He's good at leadership because he leads a team. He's the head of an IT department that deals with multiple countries. So you're dealing with different cultures, different personalities, different people. So having that person that's good at adapting to those things is good to have in a leadership role. So yeah, I may be the founder and the president, but it's not just me. Like I have to help, make sure these other people find a role to exploit their experiences. I'm not just, I may be doing the interview, maybe one that's on TV or talking to a newscaster or something, or in the meetings, but I've got people behind me that are making the gears work, So, and it's having all those different walks of life that make those gears turn the right way. That's why I love being in a volunteer organization, because you meet people from all different walks of life, and you're like, I didn't know you could offer that to me. I'm glad you bring that experience to the table.
Do you have, guys, any requirements? What are the steps when something like hurricane disaster happens?
Right. So a way people can get a hold of us is either through our Facebook page or our website. We do have an apply now or come volunteer now, come volunteer with us button on the page. It's an application. It doesn't matter your walk of life. It doesn't matter your level of what you want to do, whether it's just assisting with relief or you want to be hands-on. Maybe you're just good at fundraising or you're good at social media. We can find a spot for everyone. All we ask is that we have weekly meetings. Not everyone can make every meeting, but we do the weekly meetings between our location here and our location in Baytown to give people the options of where to go. And so we like to have people show up as often as possible. That way we can get them up to speed, so to say. We can get the hands-on training, and also a chance for them to learn us and us to learn them, and what role they would best play in the organization. Not everyone's going to want to deploy. Not everyone wants to go into the storm. We understand that, and we're good with that, because we need people that are back here supporting us out in the field. Currently, we have a few people that are always in our ear, or always on the radio through Zello, telling us about weather updates, or say, hey, I know you got your hands full, but the latest bottle run just came through. We need a chance to go look at it. Just keeping us on track with things like that. Or when we have problems in the field, those support people, they can't deploy with us because of their time commitments for work or family or something. But if they can make a trip out, bring us a spare tire, bring us another cooler, or, it's meet us on the way back. That way we've got somebody that needs to go, but we're going to be slower traveling. It's unique to see everything come together, so everyone has their own role they can play no matter their experience level. And the experience, like I said, it comes with it.
Comes with it, yeah.
As far as training is one thing that we do a lot of hands-on. We also provide areas or provide topics for other people to go get that training. We show them which training is needed, how to get it, where to go to get it. We've built some awesome relationships with some schools to further their training. Depending on funding, is depending on whether or not we pay for it or not. As always, we're a volunteer organization, so when we have funding, we try to use it as best we can, and we try to be as accountable as possible, because with being a 501c3, everything's transparent. So we could have anyone at any time ask us to see our books to make sure that we're spending the donations correctly. So yeah, anyone can join. We'll see if you're a good fit. If not, we understand. But if not with us, find an organization to go volunteer with, a local church group. There's plenty of church groups that do relief drives after a storm, and then take those supplies in. We work closely with another organization, Big Guns Disaster Response out of Weatherford. They specialize in the relief side. So we do the rescue side initially, and we kind of let them know, say, hey, this is a hard hit area. You know, we've seen it firsthand. Like there is a need for relief supplies in this area, and they'll spin up and they'll start getting the relief train moving, so to say. So even if it's not with us, we still like when people volunteer and support, each other, support their neighbors, and the community, whether it be through church organizations, different nonprofits, businesses. A regular business can put on a relief drive and hook up with another nonprofit that's taking it the rest of the way. So businesses doing fundraisers or relief drives still helps the bigger picture. So just people doing things. If people want to know how to do things, even if it's not through us, reach out. We can point you in the right direction of where people need help. Which organizations are doing certain things at that time of period. Because at the end of the day, the greatest goal is to take care of those in need. So even if it's not with us, we want to make sure that people that are in need get taken care of. And not every disaster are we able to go to. As a volunteer organization, if we don't have the manpower or the members free enough to go, we can't go. We have bylaws and policies in place that keep us safe by making sure there's a minimum number of members that go. A number of people per vehicle kind of rule. That way, no one's by themselves. So if there's 3 people going, well, all three people are going in one vehicle, not 2 in 1, because there's got to be somebody to make sure that another person's awake. So it's a rule of 2. Sometimes we're all crammed in there. Other times we're minimum, but we go where we can when we can. Now, we rely on our experience to keep us safe. We rely on our experience to go. With the assets we have, it's not safe right now. So it's one of those things where we're looking at with our eyes, not only with our eyes, but we're watching the data coming through the models and stuff like that and forecasts. We're watching the warnings, the tornado warnings, and high wind advisories and stuff like that, flood advisories. So it's a juggling act. Versus, I know we need to be out there, but at the same time, it does us no good to go out there and try and help somebody if we're the ones that are getting in trouble at that point.
Yeah.
So we know that there's no one coming to get us because we're the only ones out there. So the saying was, expect to self-rescue. We understand that, we live that. A lot of us live that day to day because of our own jobs. We have one member that does private security. He travels all across the country and around the world, and him and his unit are by himself. So they expect to self-rescue 100% of the time, and that is something that we have to live by out in the field, because we can't expect someone to come get us.
What do people misunderstand most about disaster response or in storms in general?
When people look at organizations like mine, they look at it and compare us to organizations like Cajun Navy, or organizations like the Red Cross, and I think what sets us apart in someone's perception, perception versus reality. We try to hold ourselves to a very professional mindset. We get that training and all that. So we're not just a bunch of volunteers that are untrained. Um, we don't let people deploy unless they have enough training and we're comfortable with them being by our side when things hit the fan. Um, there are a lot of other organizations that will take every single volunteer they can get and go, and next thing you know, you're having volunteers get hurt. So that's why we're not nitpicky. We want to make sure we're putting the right people in the right position. But when people look at a storm and versus when we're looking at a storm, we're looking at it firsthand, or they're looking at through a TV, and how many times have you seen someone say, "Well, why didn't they just evacuate?" Perception is through the TV screen of going, "Well, why didn't they just get out of there?" Reality is when we're there is that person's low on income, they're handicapped, or they have something that's tying them there that they can't leave. Whether it be animals, they can't take the animals to the shelter. They have an elderly family member that's not mobile, so in the hospital bed, so they're forced to ride it out. And it's people like that that are stuck in a situation where it's not that they chose not to leave, it's that they physically couldn't because of things holding them back. Right. And there are programs that communities are putting in place to get the less fortunate, the less mobile, the disabled. There are programs being put in place for that. But I think those programs could be done a little better with notification, and that goes with knowing your community and learning your community as a community government. They should be out more doing assessments, or hey, we see that there's a transport ambulance here all the time. You have someone that's on dialysis. Let's make sure that they're on that list to get out of here and to be properly cared for. And it's the communities like that are underprivileged, low income. They don't have the money to evacuate because they're living paycheck to paycheck. They don't have the money for the generator. They don't have the money for the fuel to evacuate and go stay at a hotel. Or they've already been through so many storms that they don't want to go through that again, so they'll just ride it out. And then they're stuck. So, it's a lot of people look at the TV and from the comfort of their own home and their AC and sitting there in their lazy boy and until you live it yourself and have been through it yourself, you don't really truly understand what that person on the other side of that camera is going through. And I guess that's where some people look at us and like, oh, you're a bunch of storm chasers. We're not storm chasers. We're storm responders. We're going into the storm because of what's about to happen. Is Mother Nature beautiful and powerful and an awesome thing to see? Absolutely. I can't say that I don't enjoy seeing Mother Nature at her finest or worst, so to say. But because she is that way is why we're there. It's why we outfit our vehicles the way we do, because to withstand the brutal impacts from the wind or debris and floodwaters. It's that's why we kind of have to have that storm chaser mindset to understand the dangers that we're going into. But we're not going in there trying to get things on film. We're not trying to benefit from anything. We're not benefiting from anything of this. We're going in to make sure that other people are benefiting from us being there. So I guess that's the difference. With some people may think that they're just adventure seekers or adrenaline junkies. I've been an adrenaline junkie. I've been a firefighter. I've had the adrenaline rushes, but I've also seen the devastation that comes after storms, and that's what's that driving factor of I've already been there myself. I know what that person is going through, what can I do to make sure that they don't have to go through the same things that I've gone through? You know, if you still have the perception of being behind a TV, come volunteer, come out on a storm, learn and experience the other side of not being comfy in a lazy boy, but sleeping in a hammock stretched between two trucks in a parking garage as a Cat 4 hurricane's coming through. You know, it's an experience. It'll make you think different. It'll make you more grateful for what you do have. So a lot of your basics in life can be gone like that in a storm. Running water can be gone in a heartbeat. You have a tree land on a water main, the water main's gone, no water pressure. Tree comes across power lines, there's no power. That's your internet, your phone, and water. That's your necessities right there. So unless you're prepared, have a plan, have your evacuation or your go bag that's ready for your family, and have a plan of we're going to this relative's house, you know, way outside the area, and have that plan, then Mother Nature will catch you with your pants down, you know, and it's not fun, you know. I'll tell you this, during Hurricane Ida, we were on the water, and Hurricane Ida was a storm that came in through New Orleans. It was a powerful storm. I think it was a three or four. I forgot. Like I said, we deal with storms so often. They all blend together. But there's certain aspects that stick out. Hurricane Ida, we were on the water. We were in La Place. We were just south of I-10, south of Lake Pontchartrain. And we were going in a neighborhood, and power's out. The high tension power lines that are just outside New Orleans had already been dropped into the Mississippi because of the storm. So power's out everywhere. Experience tells you that New Orleans doesn't do good when they lose power because the pumps fail. And so when we heard that the lines had gone in the water, it was like, okay, we may have another Katrina on our hands.
Wow.
And we may have a Katrina on our hands, and we're in the middle of it. You know, so mentally it's getting ready for that. Now, luckily, they were able to have their generator backups working, and didn't have as many failures as they did during Katrina. So the city got lucky then. But you know, we're on the water, and in one of the videos you can see is like we're coming down, and there's power lines about right here on top of my head just coming by, and we're ducking down in the boat. We know there's no power to them because everything is dead, but you can't be 100% sure. I don't have a tool that's going to tell me if that power line's alive or dead, but just knowing it's that close to your head and you're in water on a boat.
That's close call, for
Yeah.
sure. That's close
Yeah.
call.
Or in Winnie, tropical storm Imelda. The wind and the water of floodwaters during that storm, it was like being out at the beach, jumping waves, right there at the beach line in the surf, just jumping waves with the boat. We had that much wind. We had wind-driven floodwater that was creating waves with crests, you know, white water on top of these storms, or on top of these waves in the storm. And we were jumping waves in a neighborhood on a back road, miles away from the coast, you know. And you have a propane tank just
Swirling
on
and
by, spinning on by, pushing propane out of it as it's rolling by in the floodwater. And you're just like, all right, if that's rolling by, what else is going to be out in the water? You know, back to Ida, we had a swimmer in the water, and we're in Louisiana. What's in the water in Louisiana? Alligators. Plenty of them. And so we're looking at, we see this, the swimmer in the water happened to be my brother. And so we're out with spotlights, and we see the eyes come up, and we tell them, hey, hang where you're at, I can see it. You know, and then the eyes go down. It's like, okay, you need to go. So it's not only is it hazards from Mother Nature in the weather all across the Gulf Coast, we've got wildlife. What happens when the wildlife's home is messed up? They're moving too. So now you have herds of deer, all these alligators, snapping turtles, alligator gar,
Sharks.
sharks. So welcome to the Gulf Coast. And we have all these different kinds of wildlife that now become an issue. You can't train for that. Not one bit. I mean, you can be from the swamps of Louisiana, and that alligator is going to act totally different during a hurricane than it is during a normal day in the swamp. If you're out there on a pirogue going through canals, stuff, that alligator's not going to act the same. They're like, my house is gone. Where do I go now? And so they're just swimming around. Everything becomes a threat because they're stressed. So
Fighting for survival as well.
Exactly. So we do our best to steer clear, especially being an inflatable boat. But that's why we have a diverse fleet. We've got an inflatable boat. We got a metal boat, and so we gotta have to keep things diverse because we never know what hazards are gonna come our way. So,
Would you have any message for people who are out there as the storm chasers?
things have, I would say, behaviors have gotten better from when I started watching storm chasers. A lot more of the chasers are being reactive and going, this chase can wait, I'm going to check on that house. I know some of it may be social media driven because a lot more people are live streaming now and they want to act right for their followers, but there's so many storm chasers that this new generation of storm chaser that's going out there and getting that film, getting that shot, but then they can turn and go, I got that shot, but I just watched the house get hit. What's the fastest way that I can get there? And that's one of the ways that when I look at storm chasing is evolving, with the data, with Starlink, how much data rich our areas are now, that they're getting all this data, they're able to see things, they're able to see a house on a satellite image and be able to go, I just saw something get destroyed on the other side of this hill. I can see the CC drop on the radar and the models.
Correlation
and
coefficient.
The correlation coefficient. I can tell something got hit there. I can now look at the satellite and go,
Debris sign or something?
yeah, I saw a debris signature, and I go look at the satellite and go, that's a home. That's a farm home that's way on the backside of this hill. How do I get to it to make sure they're okay now? And we're seeing that, and it's not just, storm chasers aren't just documenting the weather and doing the research. They're becoming and they're transitioning into first responders too. So I would recommend to the storm chasers out there to make sure you've got a good med bag. Get some kind of basic level of first responder training. First aid, CPR through the Red Cross or your local hospital, or however way you can get some of that training is to get that training, because you never know when you're going to need it. You never know when your fellow chaser is going to get sent off the road. As we learned with the Twistex team, that things can happen in a heartbeat. What if we had people closer? We have people that are closer that say, hey, this is what just happened, we're out here, or we could have saved a life, we could have gotten into that home faster, we were able to put dressings on wounds. I know there's been some chasers lately that have stepped into that role of being a first responder, and it's good to see. Because a lot of these rural areas where storm chasers are chasing is out in the rural areas where it's a volunteer department. And that volunteer department, they're responding from their home to the station. And then from the station out, unless they're a manned station or they requested that their station be manned because of the weather that day. But with how sporadic tornadoes are, they're not going to be manned. So you have a volunteer department that their members are the ones being hit. The roads are impassable from wherever they're at work at. Or, in the rare case, that volunteer station just got obliterated because it's the one that took the hit, and now how long is it going to take for the next mutual aid agency to get there to even understand the layout of the city and on where they need to go. So that's where storm chases are turning into first responders. But I would caution to know your limit. To get proper training and to know what your scope is, your level of response and level of care that you're allowed to do, as a good Samaritan. So good Samaritan laws only cover you for so much. So education, training, first aid kits, having that gear, and practice how to stop the bleed, how to control the bleeding and stuff like that. A lot because you'll see a lot of trauma, especially from tornadoes and hurricanes. It's a lot of it's going to be, cuts, broken bones from a tree coming through a house or debris shattering windows, and you're now in what used to be a nice home, and you're stepping into a minefield with all these glass shards everywhere. So.
Is there anything else you would like to share with us?
This coming year for 2026, the organization's looking to be more involved in the community. We're going to be doing a lot more community outreach. We're going to do a lot more of parades and getting out into the community a lot more. Being able to get our name out there to drive some recruiting. So if you happen to see us out, stop by and say hi, ask questions, figure out if it's something you want to be a part of. But something exciting that's coming up for 2026 for the organization. For those that know the organization, I kind of realized that we threw the name of the foundation onto our name at the end of it. So we're making a transition this year. We're adding a new division that's going to be released here soon. We haven't been public with the name of it yet, but we're adding a division to the organization, and we're transitioning DRRS into a foundation to help support fellow organizations. So we're going to be going out and going after the big donors in a way of helping support smaller organizations that are just getting going. There's a organization up the road in Splendora that's a small church-based organization. They don't have a lot of funding, so we want to be like, hey, Coca-Cola, you want to donate, and we'll be the ones responsible for where that money goes to and how it's spent. So we're like the middleman. So foundations are kind of like insulators when it comes to corporate donors and these smaller organizations. So you think like or foundations like the Gary Cincy Foundation, they work with Firehouse Subs. Firehouse Subs donates to the foundation. Foundation takes care of delivering it and going out and making sure it goes to the right people. And that's kind of what we want to do. But we want to focus on other organizations like ours that have that hands-on in the community, that the grassroots organizations that are making the differences in their own little communities, but could use the extra funding for training, or could use the extra funding for a new motor, a boat, radios, things that make the job safer, make the job run better, and make those organizations more effective in their communities. So that's what we're doing. So we're transitioning. We're keeping DRS as the name. We're adding the foundation to it, and we're transitioning the rest of the other part of the organization to a new name. We'll be releasing that soon, and a lot of this coming year will be to introduce that new name, the new division, and we're excited to get that going after this new year. But if you're wanting to be a part of us, it's drrscorp.org. You can find us there, or find us on Facebook at DRRS Corp. You can find the Facebook page. You can find us on TikTok, still DRRS Corp. Facebook, website, Instagram, all the socials. But if you can find us there, if you have any questions, reach out to us. We're open. Most of the time, you're going to get me or our vice president. We're the ones that answer all the messages, and try to keep it as close knit. And we talk to each other very often, so we're always in the loop with what's going on. with communications with people being interested and with donors and everything. And the same thing goes for people wanting to donate. You can go to our website. There's a donation link there to all our donation links and all that. Like I said, we are a 501c3, so it is tax deductible. But with that, everything is transparent. So we want to make sure that you benefit from donating and supporting us. So, any other questions?
That's it for today. I appreciate.
There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people don't realize that they could be a part of. You know, the more that people see what goes on behind the scenes, they go like, I can help there. I have that strong suit. Oh, you need shirts. My company makes shirts. We can get shirts made. We can do fundraisers. You know, I've got a warehouse. If you've got the relief supplies, need a flat spot to put it, here you go. But until you do that outreach, people don't realize it, and until we have storms, we're out of sight, out of mind. And that's one thing, is like when storms come up is when we actually get funding. So it's fundraising outside of the storms is where it gets really hard. So we appreciate you.